And we start in Malawi tonight, where President Lazarus Chakwera has congratulated the Democratic Progressive Party's Peter Mutharika, who is projected to be the winner of this year's election. In his address to the nation today, Chakwera expressed gratitude to the people of Malawi for trusting him to lead the country over the last few years. He says he will remain forever thankful for their confidence and support. Former President Mutharika is projected to return to power as the country waits the final proclamation of the results of the election held last week. Early tallies show that 85-year-old Mutharika has surged ahead with more than 60% of the vote. Incumbent Chakwera is the Malawi Congress Party's torchbearer, while Mutharika, by the way, just to remind you, has stood or ran as the candidate for the Democratic Progressive Party. Let's talk more then about these outcomes of the elections held in Malawi. Bring in SABC News reporter Khayelihle Khumalo, who's been tracking the story for, in fact, from the run-up, right, Kaya, to where we are now. We're waiting still, as I was saying, for the proclamation of the final result. But for all intents and purposes, it seems there's a clear winner.
Well, very much so, especially Thembekile. We've seen that concession from President Chakwera, but also saying that out of the respect of the will of the people of Malawi, but also so grateful to the Malawians for giving him an opportunity to lead the country, really facing all sorts of challenges, the economic hardship to the fuel shortages and many other things as well. But also, Thembekile, it's been really interesting where a number of very prominent people in Malawi already, they're congratulating President Mutharika, but of course we still await for that official announcement. Initially, it was supposed to be at 2 p.m., but now we do understand it's been moved to 7 p.m.
And while we wait for that to happen, what's interesting is that Chakwera has said today that he is committed to a peaceful transfer of power. Those are very important words, right, in the context of what we saw happen after the 2019 vote.
Well, that's right, Thembekile, where we saw the nullification of the results. And this is quite important for Malawi. This is a country that has always been seen as very stable, but also allowing democracy really to prevail from the time where the multi-democracy rule was allowed from the early 90s to this point. But also it's been really interesting. So many people reaching out to Chakwera to really concede, from former President Muluzi, also reaching out to Chakwera, to the religious community as well. And it's quite a very turning point, especially because this is a very interesting scenario where he's currently the chair of the SADC, the Troika for Security and Defense. So clearly had to be very exemplary in this regard, Thembekile, but also from his own party as well. We've seen them also commending him for conceding, saying that he's really showing very true leadership, especially in the context in the continent where leaders do cling on to power.
And what swung this vote in Mutharika's favor when you consider that by 2019, the population in Malawi was done with him, and that's why he lost that election? What has changed in the subsequent years? It's
a very tough economic environment, Thembekile. The inflation is skyrocketing, but also, among other things, you know, when Chakwera came into the office, he had so many promises that he made to Malawians, but also when they look at the results, I mean, others, they say this has been a referendum on his presidency. And in fact, when you compare the two leaders, Mutharika and Chakwera, they say Chakwera really spent a lot of time crisscrossing every part of Malawi, but now Mutharika really spent quite very few days. In fact, they say started in August to campaign, really just showing you that when he was really campaigning, he was quipping that other Malawians really missing him, and he was saying he's coming back. So it's a very interesting scenario in this regard.
And regarding the wait for the final results to come out here, Kaya, do we know what the reasons are for the delay? Because the election was held a week ago already.
Well, so far we do understand, Thembekile, that there has been a litany of issues, the complaints being raised. So Malawian Electoral Commission says it's really going to go through thoroughly to all these complaints. And in fact, I'm sure they're really trying to avoid that moment of really just seeing a lot of people going to courts, because even yesterday we saw Chakwera, he went to the court, but that bid was rejected and they said the electoral body should go ahead. So I think they really want to make sure that they cover all the tracks, deal with all the major concerns that have been raised.
And just lastly on that point, yes, Chakwera today in this address conceded that he's lost, or his party at least, because they do run on a party system, has lost this vote, right? But what about the other candidates, the likes of another former president, Joyce Banda, the most prominent woman whose party was also contesting this election? Is the expectation that they too are satisfied with the way that the vote has been held, at the very least?
I think there's a great deal of satisfaction with the results thus far, albeit as we wait for the electoral body to make the final confirmation. In fact, even other parties, they're congratulating Mutharika. They say that it's been a very good race for him. In fact, to quote Chakwera again, saying that they can see the very insurmountable lead from the side of DPP. But a lot of people, they're saying that this is a very conditional victory for Mutharika. It's not because really they say that it does have what it takes, but they say this is a protest vote, but also showing the very maturity of the Malawian politics in this regard.
Khayelihle Khumalo, our eyes and ears on the situation in Malawi. Kai will bring you in as and when we get the latest developments out of out of Malawi, and in fact we'll speak to you later, hopefully, when that final outcome is proclaimed by the country's electoral authorities. That's SABC News correspondent reporter Khayelihle Khumalo.